right, let's kick this thing off, shall we? Our first fireside chat today is titled Effective Leadership. Elbows in, elbows out, or a blend. This one's presented by Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar. Please welcome to stage the moderator and our host last night, Miss Allison Melangton, the Senior Vice President of Penske Entertainment.
Good morning. I'm going to say one thing about my jacket as I walk on. I want to thank Sherry Marr. Those of you who were there last night, this was a gift to me by being the honorary chair. Is it not gorgeous? It's beautiful. You too can get a jacket like this if you sign up to be the honorary chair for a year. You too can do it. Thank you, Cindy and Sherry. You can buy one.
Joining Allison on stage, please welcome the president of Lucas Oil Products, Katie Lucas. And from the Indianapolis Colts, co-owner and chief brand officer, Kalen Jackson.
Welcome, ladies.
Thanks
So
for
excited to
having us.
have you with us this morning to share some of your wisdom. And we have a great title of our session this morning: Elbows Out or Elbows In. And how many of you know that that's a hockey or basketball term, right? You've heard it before. And women in leadership, sometimes it's a stigma, right? They work elbows out or elbows in. And I've known these two ladies since we hosted the Super Bowl here in 2012, which was 13 years ago. We all got to work together. So I've had the direct opportunity to observe them in their leadership styles, and we're going to talk about that today. One great thing about both of them is that they generally are elbows in, but they certainly know how to push the elbows out when they need to. I've seen them both do it, and they do it with grace and with dignity. So we're going to get a little bit of insight from them on when they choose to do that today. So first off, I just want to talk about leadership. Leadership is how you lead is a choice, and how other people experience you is a choice. You both have incredible reputations for being effective leaders. So maybe just a couple tidbits from each of you on your leadership style. And was that a choice early on, or has that evolved? Why don't we start with Katie?
Yes. It's absolutely a choice, and it should evolve, in my opinion, over time. And as we continue to grow and learn, we want to refine how we lead others. Certainly when I was a little bit younger in my leadership journey, I thought I needed to lead everybody the exact same way. I really felt like it was inauthentic if I didn't lead everyone the same way. But that was more inward thinking, right, and not outward thinking. And as a leader, you can't think about you. You need to think about your audience and how people receive that message. So I think that's one of the biggest changes for me was it's not being inauthentic. Who I am doesn't change. My values don't change. But the messaging to certain audiences or certain people needs to adapt to how they receive it. And I think one of my favorite quotes is, you can lead, but if no one follows, you're just taking a walk.
Yeah, that's a great quote. Kalen.
Well, first I just want to say thank you guys for having me here. I was joking with our COO, Pete Ward, who Allison and Katie know very well. And I said, whenever Allison calls and asks me to do something, I'm always going to say yes. She is one of my women, but just in general, people that I look up to as a leader myself. So this is just a wonderful conversation to be able to be a part of. And as Allison mentioned, Katie and I have worked together so much as well. And so truly, this is an authentic statement that both these women I look up to so much. And probably you'll hear a lot of similarities between Katie and I. When we had a pre-call, so much of the conversation was us filling in each other's sentences, and very similarly, really feeling a bond in the sense of how we've learned from our leadership over the years. And so it's really an honor to share the stage with you both. I would say very similarly to Katie, that was something in my notes, even this morning when I was thinking about what I would say, that I have evolved over time. And I do think it is a choice, but I was thinking more about our organization as a whole. We're a family-run business, as is Katie's, and that's such a blessing to be able to really lead from that space of being family run, and our mission and our vision and our values are really truly our values of our family. But when I really look at leadership and how I want to be, represented amongst the building, which we have now become 200 plus employees on the non-football side, which is pretty large when you come here in the 80s and you have 6 front office staff. So a lot has changed, but we really try to stay true to those values. And so when I think of how I'm being perceived across the building and how my actions may be being perceived, whatever type of conversation I'm having with anyone, am I showcasing those values and mission that we expect our employees to embody when they come into our building? And that's a really nice way to gut check yourself. Am I embodying the thing that I expect of everyone else? And I think that's, an age-old traditional leadership comment, but it's very true in the sense that don't ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. And I think that is really something that I still hold true no matter what level that I get to in terms of a leadership role. And I think that helps you stay grounded, stay authentic, and really try to guide as you lead. Because so many, no matter what age, I think a lot of people that come through our building are really looking at their career as a whole. How am I moving past this next step? What does this title change mean to me? And really understanding, like Katie said, that each person has their own way that they like to be led. And how can you still stay true to yourself, but meet them where they are and what they need?
Yeah, great answers from both of you. The elbows in, elbows out is an interesting conversation because many times, that the elbows out is considered, there's a stigma, a little bit of a negative term to it. But certainly in the NFL and certainly in motorsports and certainly in my career, you have to be able to do that. And so, talk a little bit about that when you get to that point where you say, to yourself, my leading's not working in the way that I'm doing it. How do you switch that to the more bold and aggressive leadership style to accomplish what you need to accomplish? What's that switch and how does it happen?
I think that commonly, I feel like a lot of women in this room would feel that sometimes you might get termed differently if you are firm, let's say. And that it might be looked at differently if you're a woman than you're a man. But I think what I look at it is being firm, you don't have to be unkind. You don't have to lose the empathy that I find true to my core ethics and who I am. But being confident in your choices, again, why are you making that statement? Why are you choosing to have elbows out? What happened before?
Right.
I don't think it's as simple as the exact instance. And I think that making sure that you're leading still with kindness and empathy and understanding. And honestly, the biggest thing that I find is, am I listening enough, like active listening? And am I asking the right questions in the situation? Because I think probably if my family was up here, anyone who's known you my whole life, I'm a very wear my heart on my sleeve person. And so I would say over the years, I probably had to learn how to temper my strong opinions. And what happened for me was seeing how the way I responded impacted the situation or impacted the person, and having the ability to look inward at yourself and learn about you first. Are you doing the work about? And it may sound like something that, and of course I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about mental health and therapy. But I'm telling you, the more that you're able to learn about yourself, the better leader you can be. I think that so often you might be leading from a place that actually isn't what you want to showcase. You want to showcase strength, and you want to be strong, especially as a woman in a male-dominated space. You don't want to be looked at as someone who can be walked all over, but you can lead with confidence, and you don't have to always be the person that is elbows out that are really spiky, let's say.
Right.
It can be elbows out in a strong, confident
Right.
way, but it doesn't have to be unkind. And I think that takes time. That took me time. It took me time to learn what that looks like. And honestly, I would say that learning more about myself, growing as an individual, because I think so often in business you're looking inside the building, like what's happening in here, but what's happening outside the building in your life. I became a mom. Even this past year, I lost my dad. There are things that happen to you in your life, and those aren't small things, and they impact you, and there's circumstances that can be such a positive thing if you choose to learn from them and grow from them.
I want to compliment Kalen and her sisters. 13 years ago, I guess, whenever we had the Super Bowl here, I was the second CEO of a Super Bowl host committee, second woman in 46 Super Bowls. But since then, women like Kalen and her sisters that have really stepped forward in the NFL and proved that brilliance and competence is a space that women can be in the NFL. The last 12 years, I've seen it change dramatically. And you guys are highly respected, and I love it when you walk in the room and everybody has to pay attention, because competence and brilliance is a wonderful thing in the NFL space, and she's got it. Okay, Katie, to you.
I want to piggyback real quick because I think clear is kind and firm is kind. And that's something that sometimes takes some learning. And if I could pivot a little bit, because I absolutely agree with everything that you said, it's always that balance. And I think that, I just kind of want to touch on this, in a room full of women, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise on social media. There's noise everywhere. And so there's the balance of listening to your team, listening to the people you need to listen to, and then completely ignoring all the noise from the outside. And I just want to brag on you and your sister a little bit. I just feel like you and Carly do that so incredibly well. Honestly, we've talked about this before. No matter what's going on, you put your head down, you ignore the noise, and you continue to build your team. And that's really, really hard to do, especially when the noise is on a national level. And I just applaud you all for doing that so incredibly well, because the balance is hard. It really is.
Yeah. Let's circle back on something you said about doing the work. I've heard both of you speak publicly a lot, and one of the things you've both talked about is self-awareness and how important it is to be able to say, I need to shave off my rough edge, or I need to not have spikes on my elbows, or I need to be more bold, more aggressive to try to influence more. When you say do the work, give us a couple examples.
You mean about like self work?
How do you become more self-aware?
Yes.
Look in the mirror and decide how you're going to change.
And that was a lot of the pre-conversation we had is that. And I do think, it can look differently for everybody. I think welcoming constructive feedback and constructive criticism, because I think that so often too, people, like Katie mentioned a little bit, in this day and age, but really always. Social media is making it worse, but comparison game has been a problem, I think, for decades. Right. And I think that I get you look up to someone, you want to be just like them, because I know what that feels like. But how can you be what you see that you love, but still stay authentic to yourself? And I think that you have this unique ability that no one else has. You're an individual, and what can you bring to the table that's different than everybody else? I think that for me, we love creativity and new ideas, and someone who's asking the questions and challenging us maybe in things that we've done for 20 years. And, well, why are you doing it that way? Well, that's a good question. We want people to challenge us. We don't want the same person. We want you to be yourself. And so I think too often are people trying to fit into a box that maybe they don't fit in. And I think really looking inward and saying, is this the right position for me? Or did I just end up here and I'm fighting for something that I don't even have passion for? I would say that in our position, we're very lucky. We do not take for granted the fact that we are basically handed this opportunity to take on, but that also gives us that much more fire to prove that we belong here. And so also, I had to look inward, is this what I want to do? It's like this thing that's like, well, you should do this, and who wouldn't take this opportunity? But I really did take the time in school and say, is this what I want to do? Do I want to do something else? And that was okay in our family, which was such a blessing. But I think that that's not always a conversation that's had. And so often in a career, in this crazy busy life, you end up somewhere where maybe you don't want to be. And that's a hard thing to look in the mirror and say, I spent 10 years working toward this, and I don't know if I even want it. But that's the piece to me, is having that drive and that passion that enables you to not care if you have to schlep boxes and do anything that you're asked because you love it. And what does that look like for you? Not what it looks like for somebody else. What does it look like for you?
Yeah, that's great advice. How many of you have schlepped boxes before? Everybody in the room. Okay, Katie.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kalen, to your point, I think, self-awareness is emotional intelligence, and people talk about that all the time. And I think as a leader, it's incredibly important not to surround yourself with yes people. We have seen how that works, and it does not work well. You want people to challenge you in a kind way. I very much believe in business coaches and mentors. Get people that hold you accountable. It could be a friend. Have someone hold you accountable. Is this the right thing? You say you want to do X, Y, and Z. Are these the steps you're really taking to get there? At the office, I really, really like the 360 reviews. I think they're incredibly helpful, very time-consuming, but very, very helpful.
Yeah, I've had many over my career, and I think they're very helpful too. Let's circle back on feedback for a minute. Certainly there's a lot of men here today, and thank you for being here. And, men are the best allies for us that we can have. And matter of fact, one gentleman I'll call out real quick, maybe gave me the best advice early in my career. And as Katie said, you want people around you that are truth tellers, mentors and advocates and allies that will tell you the truth. But as Kalen said, you have to be willing to hear the feedback. And so Jack Swarbrick, the former athletic director at Notre Dame, once told me in my 30s, I was doing a project with him. He knew me well. I trusted him. He was someone that I knew cared about me and my development. And we were spending a lot of time together working on a project at the Olympics in Atlanta. And he said to me, I love you, but, which was an odd thing for him to say, right? That he loved me and then the but. I said, yeah, tell me what it is. And he said, you need to learn to be comfortable in silence. And I thought, you know what? He's right. Because anytime there was a pause in a conversation, I would try to jump in and fill the air. And what happens is over time, people stop listening to you. And he cared about me enough to tell me that. And I thought it was great that a man told me that because it was from his perspective. A woman could have told me the same thing. But is there a piece of advice, we're talking about feedback, something that someone told you that you grabbed onto and you said, okay, that's maybe harsh to hear, but I'm going to choose to hear it the right way, and I'm going to choose to make a change?
That's a good question. You didn't prep us for this.
I'm sorry. I didn't tell you about that.
I'm just kidding. Gosh, so many. But I do want to at least mention that I do think it's important. There's a saying, I actually have it on a hat, that says you don't have to be a woman to support one. Mm-hmm. And I do think, we had the ultimate girl dad before that was a term. I think, I don't know if it was a phrase, but I think the challenging your thinking, I like to surround myself with people who do that. I'll use my sister Carly as an example. She and I, we call each other yin and yang a little bit because we work really well together because our personalities have big differences. Like I might bring her back down to earth and she's extremely creative. We have both of those things in us, but it's nice to have someone to balance you out, as we talked about balance. But I think the best, I don't know if it's advice, the best thing about Carly for me, and I'm lucky that it's my sister that I get to work with, is that having someone that you can feel like you can be your full self with, so that you can have open conversations about, you kind of came off like this, and it's like, I did? I was like, because you can't see yourself sometimes. Right. Even if you're willing to look in the mirror at yourself, it's really hard sometimes to see it. So to have someone be able to be kind and tell you, like you said, the things that you can't see, knowing that you'd want to know if you came off that way, is so beneficial for me. And I'd say that there are men, women, in my life that do that for me all the time. And that's what's helped me become a better leader, is being able to have someone kindly look at me and be able to share with me what they are seeing and how I'm coming off. And yep. And sometimes it's a positive thing. Sometimes it's like, wow, you're like, this was an impactful moment. Like, you should do more of that. Yep. But I think, I don't know of a phrase necessarily, but I think it's more just, I look for those deeply meaningful conversations My mom always makes me laugh because she always says, I don't want to just talk about the weather. Like, let's talk about the real stuff. And I'm kind of like that too. Always been like that. But I do think it's one of the harder things that took time for me to crave. But I think craving that feedback is how you grow. And I would say the only other thing, this isn't really a phrase or anything that someone told me, but when I first got out of college, public speaking was like my nightmare, which is hilarious because now it's like half of what I do all the time. But that's a perfect example. I could not see it, but my dad would say it's one of your best qualities. Tom Zupanzik used to work with us. He shoved so many things on me because he saw it was something that he thought I could do really well in, but I could not see that. Yep. And if they didn't shove me into it, I would have run as fast as I could in the other direction. And so those types of things kind of goes in the same vein of like someone being able to see something you can't, and trusting them and diving in led me to something now it's one of my favorite things to do. And so I think that's kind of a long-winded answer, but.
No, it's a good answer. Yeah, good.
And kind of piggybacking off of that, I mean, sometimes you don't even have someone else to push you through that. So public speaking was the only class in college that I dropped. I hated it, sick to my stomach, and I have to do it all the time, and I just forced myself to do it. And you grow as a person. When you're in a situation that it's the most scared you could possibly ever be, and you just force yourself time after time to do it, you grow. I mean, you grow as a human being. And then going back to something you earlier said about the balance, whether it's a sister, for me, it's a spouse or a business partner, but to really, really balance you. I work with my husband. That's one of the most common questions we get is, what is it like working with your spouse? We have the same North Star, but we are very, very different in how we get there, and that makes us a great team. So whether it's your sister or a spouse or a business partner or a friend, I really encourage you to find somebody still the same North Star, but comes at it a very different way, because that's where true growth happens.
Yeah, exactly. Feedback is a gift. Let's talk a little bit about in the women's space, in the NFL, in motorsports, in business. It seems like over time, things have gotten a little easier, and women have taken more and more leadership roles and had more and more influence. What advice would you give? There's a lot of young women in this room navigating their careers. It's easy to get frustrated when you feel either overlooked or not listened to in certain audiences. What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I would say in my 20-year career, I mean, it is night and day different than when we first started. I mean, you two are perfect examples. Leading an NFL franchise, leading Penske. We have women leading Pacers, Fever, Andretti. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, I think Indiana's pretty special in the fact that we have so many female leaders in a sports-dominated environment. We have Marvella, who's working on female training, Indy Sports Corps, their 2050 vision. One of their pillars is women's sports. Yep. It's fantastic. That being said, I do believe that being a female, you have to work harder, and you have to prove yourself more than your male counterparts in a male-dominated industry. I still think that that's there. And that's a challenge and we get the choice to what to do with that challenge, right? You can embrace it, or you can be, kind of bitter and let it kind of control you. I think pressure is a privilege, and I find it a huge opportunity to face that challenge each and every day. I think you have to let it excite you. Otherwise, it just might define you, and you don't want that.
Yep, you're exactly right. Kalen?
I think I would say making yourself invaluable, so there is no choice in needing you. And I think that can change people's minds, like in itself, just by showing up, being a hard worker. I think that I agree with Katie that it is still a big problem, but I think how can you, once you do push past those boundaries and you do break those barriers type moments, how, at least when I'm looking at myself, like what I do now is how can I help mentor others, or how can I pave a pathway where there isn't as hard? And I think being able to do that, whether that be as small as mentoring, an intern that you're overseeing, giving them advice, showing them the way, I think those things eventually change and make a cultural shift. I think that for us, we've started many different elements in our business where, for example, we have basically a scholarship named after our grandma Harriet, my dad's mom, that enables a female to come in and work on the sports side, like on the football side, in terms of personnel. And that's our Izzy Diaz. I'll brag on her a little bit. She's in her 3rd year as one of our assistants in special teams. And she'll speak to it a lot where she'll say, you can't be afraid to ask questions. Like, ask, because that's how you learn. And where she got that advice was from mentors that were saying, it's okay if you don't know that. Like, I'm going to help you know that, and I'm going to help guide you. And then she's doing the same thing for now women who are interested. How did you get to where you are? And I think that creating that pipeline, and I give the NFL a lot of credit because this will be their 10th year, their women's forum at the Combine, and that has changed the industry completely. We have 15 full-time female coaching staff across the league this year. At least that was last year's number. It could be more this year, but I think it's about the same. But that's like a 2,000% increase from 2020. But that doesn't happen by accident. I think realizing the impact you can have being a female in this space and not being afraid. There's a difference between cocky and confident. And it's okay to be confident. But I think remembering, people have asked us, like, did you mean to be a mentor to little girls? And it's like, well, no, but I am. I see that I am a role model to them, and that matters. A lot of people have congratulated us on all these different things this year, and that's so wonderful, but we have an amazing team that helps support us. My dad gave us such opportunity and opened so many doors and reminded us that we belonged at that table. And I think taking that with us, we realize that this is way bigger than just us. And I think that's what an inspiring thing to be able to be a part of. Like Katie said, there's a lot of pressure with that, but to me, I just see it as a beautiful opportunity and what a gift, and I don't want to waste it. And how can I help people realize and represent women in a positive light, so that we're not sitting here one day being like, wow, isn't it amazing that there's women owners? Like, it's just a thing. So that's what I hope the day to be, is that it's not this huge topic of conversation. It just is.
Right. And the goal, of course, is to just get gender off the table completely, right? Just following up on something Katie said, Indianapolis is a great sports town. I mentioned this last night at the event, but it's also a great town for women leaders, particularly in sports. We have, in all the NBA teams, we have only the 2nd NBA team that has a female president. So for us as a community over the years, we've had a lot of fantastic female role models. And so, if you see one, you can be one. And I think, for all of us, we've seen the evolution in our community over time, and hopefully that's all happening in your communities across the country as well. And each of you that are stepping into leadership roles are those examples that Kalen was just talking about, how important that is for young women to see that advancement and to see the growth there, because they need a role model. They need somebody to look to. Okay, we just have a couple minutes left. Any closing comments, thoughts, and anything you didn't get to say this morning?
I was thinking of a phrase that I think is important is, if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect anyone else to? And it sounds like such a simple thing, but I think that goes back to the self-reflection, self-awareness, emotional intelligence. You have to be able to have the skills to do the job, but it matters how you show up to that job. And I think that's something that I would just leave you all with.
Yeah, great closing thought.
I think being authentic and knowing your purpose. And I think one of the things you talked about female leaders in Indiana. It's not just female leaders, but you're true to who you are. You don't have to change to lead.
Great
Penske.
point.
You don't have to change and be someone else, because I truly think the only way you can be successful is being who God made you to be, and there's one of you, which is what you said, right? And I think that you're not changing who you are. You don't hide your values. You don't hide your femininity. but you lead with that. And I think that's the superpower, right, is that passion and authenticity that people, it's not fake. You know, eventually people will see through that, but you are so real and authentic, and I think that that's something that is just so just needed in this day and age.
Wonderful.
I was just going to say, I think one more, it just reminded me, kind of goes with both, but one of my favorite things about my dad is that he saw people as humans first. And I think so often, you know, with the rat race and being competitive and career driven, those are all wonderful things. But you also have to remember, like, each person you're dealing with, like, they may be showing up this way that you really don't like, and it's not, it might be really ugly and it's not kind, but who knows what they're going through. It's that perspective, having perspective and a big picture, I think, too, is one of the most helpful things in whatever career, whatever path you're taking, is remembering that.
Yeah.
And that goes along with staying true to yourself, but remembering that there is a much bigger picture than the one thing right in front of you.
Yep. Excellent closing thoughts. Let's give these wonderful, competent, brilliant women a hand. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Appreciate you guys making the trip down.